Hello, it's Mr. Egg. Welcome to today's video. Today I've come on location, although we haven't actually hit the budget that hard because we're only in Pattaya, and we've come to see, for the second time on the channel, my good friend, Mr. Callum MACKIE. Hello, Callum.
Hello, Phil.
Have you been singing? Because we were going to do this interview outside and it looks like it started raining.
I'm singing in the rain.
Nice to see you. Now, last time we saw you, we were talking about all matters golfing, because Callum is not just famous in the world of golf here in Pattaya, he's famous in the nightclub industry and in the bar industry, because eventually, rather like myself, you ended up being a bit of an owner and having an interest in a few bars, and we might talk about that later. But you came here first as a tourist. Just explain your first experiences here when you came here as a tourist and going out, you know, in the nightclubs and the bar industry.
I originally came here, I think, about 1998, and I was going to a mobile communications conference in Beijing, and it was sponsored by one of the manufacturers with whom I'd spent many millions of dollars over a number of years. And they basically said, look, we'll sponsor you to come and speak at this conference. Take as long as you like to get there and as long as you like to go back. And we're not worried, you know, where you stop off en route. So I thought, well, I've never been to Thailand. So I went to China. I spoke at this mobile comms conference. I took a flight from Beijing to Bangkok, ended up in a hotel in Bangkok, ended up in a bar, as you do in Bangkok, drinking at just a normal pub, but drinking with some lads that played golf. And they said, we're going down to Pattaya at the weekend. Why don't you go down and try Pattaya and, you know, we'll have a game of golf. So that's how I ended up coming to Pattaya and discovering the delights of Pattaya and the delights of golf in Pattaya.
So you're talking about the 90s when you were here first, is that
Yeah,
right?
1998, I think, Phil.
Just talk about the contrast between that and now, say, 23 years ago.
There's been a lot of change, and I think a lot of it's been brought about by technology. I mean, if you go back to the old days in 1998, there were internet cafes everywhere.
Yes.
The way we found out about what was going on in Pattaya was to go on these things called forums.
Yes. And
I used to be a regular in the FLB, which is a bar I was introduced to. At that time, I think it was the freelancer bar.
And the forum was called Pattaya Talk, which is still going now.
Is it really?
Yeah. I've got some photos of FLB, and we're going to put them on screen. I'd love you to talk a little bit about them. How about, talk to us about this photograph. Do you remember that? This is like a police interview, isn't it? What do you remember about this day?
Yeah. I'd say, first of all, they're probably all married to Feline by now, so you wouldn't want to share any of the names. But secondly, what they're sat in front of is what's called the bell ringer's mirror.
Yes.
And anyone that rang the bar in FLB got the name put on that mirror. Yeah. And I'd hold my hand up and say, guilty as charged. There's a few of mine on
They had
there.
a Callum MACKIE stencil that they just sprayed.
Well, I wasn't the biggest. There were a couple of American guys called Mikey and SF Do It that kept coming over here. And they were serial bell ringers. They really were.
Now people might be watching this and saying, oh, but that's old hat, you know, putting names of people on mirrors. It wasn't back in the 90s, it was a new concept.
It was a new concept.
Yeah, I mean, virtually every bar down Soho 6 does it now. But it was a new concept. And the FLB, I've always said, was a groundbreaking bar in that it had that and the famous parties. What can you tell us about the parties that's broadcastable?
It was a package deal.
Yeah.
You paid a certain amount of money, and for that you got some food, and you got the legendary dance competition, where the girls got up on the shooter's bar, and you'd heats, then you'd a semi-final, then you'd a final, and some of the cost of the party went into doing the prize money. So of course they had a tendency to remove most of their clothing and interact with the guys who were appointed as the judges. There were a number of huddles in front of the...
And the great thing about that is, now this was before even feature phones that had cameras, let alone smartphones. So yes, there were a few photos knocking around the internet, but it was the photographs were definitely frowned upon, and it was all it was all sort of private. And didn't they draw curtains or something like that? I can't remember.
I think they drew the curtains in case anybody came in.
Yes.
And photography was banned unless it was under the control of the manager, which made a lot of sense, because there's certain people that didn't want their photographs taken. I mean, today is very different, but back then, all you had were phones that you could text people on. And I think what the girls did was every Friday night, they would send out a group text message to every number they had in their database, saying, "Hello Tilak, how are you? You come to my bar tonight." And I mean, that could have gone out to, in some cases, hundreds of blokes. But they do it every Friday night, on the chances that one of these Friday nights, Tilak would happen to be in town.
And then, of course, as soon as Tilak came back on the plane and changed his SIM to the phone that it was messaging, he would get those messages and respond back. And actually, there was a girl who told me that there was some kind of system in the main telecom providers over here where you could send a call or a message, and if the SIM card was not activated or wasn't on, they'd send a text, but they'd only send a text when the phone was activated again. So as soon as they got into Suvarnabhumi or Don Muang back in those days, they put the SIM in, and the girl would know exactly the moment that they landed at the airport. And she'd be on, "Oh honey, how are you? I've missed you so much." Tell us about those, because we've got some great photos of Ryder Cups and some of the parties that you had. This is a great one that I love, with all the girls dressed in their lovely uniforms there. Just for those people that didn't see the first video, just explain the concept behind the Ryder Cup.
And it was a one-day golf competition, and it all ended up with a party in the FLB afterwards, with the usual dance contest and food and all the rest of it. And the winning team ended up as the judges in the dance contest. So it was the usual stuff, you know, they all got their kit off and they danced around, and I would say these were the legendary days of the Ryder Cup, because you could actually have what I would call the interactivity in the bar afterwards. But there were some legendary guys. I mean, one of them, SF Dude, he was a legend in his own lunchtime. And we did this in the old Kittens bar, and we got him dressed up in a tutu.
Like in Naglua?
In Naglua, yeah. And he was dressed up as a ballerina, but unbeknown to him, we'd bribed the local copper to come and arrest him for being a transvestite. So we had him up on stage doing his thing in his pink tutu with lipstick and all the rest. And the policeman bursts in, handcuffs him.
I can't believe that Pattaya's finest will be available for bribes, Callum. I can't believe that.
Unbelievable. But I do remember him coming to England, and we went out for a drink with Robin, who was one of my partners in Cats.
Yes.
And we went to this rugby bar in, I think it was in Esher or somewhere like that, because Robin's brother was a big rugby player, and they were all rugby lads in there straight after the game. And we said, what we having to drink? You know, pint of lager, pint of Guinness.
They get thirsty.
And SF Dude goes, "I'll have a Baileys, please." And the whole boozer went quiet. I said, "What?" He said, "I'd like a Baileys, please." I said, "Can you make that a large one, please?" They're all looking at this guy. Nobody drinks a bloody Baileys in a rugby pub.
You decided to take there was the bar complex on Soho 16. Was it the Soho Soho Square it was called?
They called it Soho Square. Yeah. I came in as a shareholder, and that was the first time I'd been involved in the bar business.
What was it like? I mean, this was like early 2000s.
This would have been early 2000s.
Yeah.
I think Cats would have opened about 2001, 2002, something like that. And it was a good little business.
Yeah.
But like all of the bars that are up the side streets, you're very reliant, if you're a small bar, on how the big bars near you are doing. And we did very well because we were next to Club Boucher.
Absolutely.
Which was the #1 destination
and
bar.
there was a young manager in the bar above called Exxon. I don't know if you remember him.
Egg, something
yeah,
Egg.
That was him.
Egg, yeah.
Actually, we talked to Ricky because Ricky was the manager at Cats for a while.
Yes, he was, yeah.
And he spoke very, very fondly about it.
It was a good little bar.
Yeah.
And it was a bar where people met up at the end of the evening. So when they'd done their rounds of everywhere else, they could come in there at the end of the evening. And the other thing is that it was a bar where they could bring their bar finds.
Yes.
And they were quite comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't a looky-feely bar.
I always thought it was like the FLB without the band, but with a few girls on stage. That's how I kind of got that feeling.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, because I mean, there's so many people that love the FLB, but I was always put off by the live music because it was not because the music was rubbish. In fact, the music was very good, but it was just too loud for me.
Oh, the original music.
Yeah.
You don't remember the Ugly Brothers?
Yes.
Yeah, the Ugly Brothers. They were the only band in Pattaya that would allow people to get up and sing with the band, and the singer was much better than the one the band had. So they were quite happy to have people come up and sing with them. And the Ugly Brothers, they were replaced by the Filipino band.
Yes.
Who really were a top band.
And I believe they do a lot of stuff online now. They're doing live streams and stuff.
Are they now?
Yeah, I think based in Phuket, I think, but they're doing some stuff. What was the name of the Filipino band? I can't remember.
Rhythm Tracks.
That's it, Rhythm Tracks.
And it was Dante was the top man. He was the drummer. Yeah. And he sort of got all the different members.
One of the people that went to all of these clubs, went to Secrets, went to FLB, went to Cats, came to a lot of bars that I went to and always supported me, and always had a few suggestions on how to run your venue was the lovely Hillier.
Oh yes.
Have you got any? Just describe Hillier, because he died about 15 years ago, or
God, I'm trying
maybe
to
10
think.
years ago.
It would certainly be 10 years ago.
Yeah,
you know, yeah, I think maybe about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, Hillier was a legend.
Absolute legend.
Absolute legend. He had a lovely condominium overlooking the sea, and I'll never forget. Hillier rang me up one day. We were very good friends, and I'd moved into this area here. I said, Callum, come round. I've got a new TV. I've got a high definition TV. So I drove down to his place, took the lift up, and he was all set up. He didn't have it in his lounge, he had it in his study. And he's got his porn running on it. And he said, look at the definition on that nipple. And that was Hilly all over, you know. He had his driver so when he went out on Walking Street every night, the driver drove him downtown in his Volvo, dropped him off wherever he wanted to go. And I bumped into the driver because I used to come down a bit later. And he's got 3 Russian birds in Hilly's car. I said, what are you doing here? He goes, shh, don't tell Bruce. I said, I do delivery to hotels when he's out drinking. So he was taking the Russian hookers round to the hotels in Hilly's car, bringing them back into town, and then he'd be all parked up, ready, waiting for when Hilly had finished his evening. That was at Siam Plantation.
Oh, okay.
And that's the time that we got a giant inflatable penis, and we blew this thing up with the golf shoe cleaner thing. I bribed the starter, or my operations manager. She had bribed the starter, so we got this strapped onto the back of a golf cart. It's about 6 foot tall, this dick, and we got it into the middle of the golf course. And the plan was, as well as doing the longest drive, we would have nearest the dick. But the little caddy thought it was the longest drive. So I'd stuck it at about 150 yards out.
Right.
So that people, it was a par 5, so they'd have to take a 7-iron or something if they wanted to go for this nearest the dick. This guy hits his shot and it goes flying right over the top of the dick. So the caddy walks up to it, picks it up, and she's carrying it down to his golf ball. And we go, no, take it back.
Put the penis back.
And I was warned off by Siam Plantation that we couldn't really have that sort of competition there again.
And have you got a message for all your friends that can't be here at the moment?
Yeah, I just can't wait for you guys to be able to travel and come here.
And I think the story's only just begun. There's going to be so many more people that will be sitting here maybe in 20 years' time and telling about, you know, the stories of the 2020s, and this town will never ever change. The party vibe will always be here.
It's always going to be a party town.
Callum, can I shake you by the hand? Am I allowed to?
You're allowed to shake me by the hand.
There you go. See you in November, Callum. The pub, Ryder Cup.
See you in November, Phil.
Cheers, mate. Lovely to speak to you.
And lovely to speak to you.
And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget, give us a like, subscribe to the channel. More coming up on walking streets and Pattaya in future videos. But for now, from me, Mr. Egg, and from Callum MACKIE,
bye-bye.
See you later. Bye.